Okay,
I
Mr.
think,
Babu, dice is yours. Yeah, please
yeah.
continue.
Hello all. Very good morning, everyone. I would like to introduce Vijayalakshmi ma'am, a distinguished individual with an impressive academic and professional background. She holds a postgraduate degree in mathematics from the prestigious IIT Madras. Vijayalakshmi ma'am has further enriched her profile with a range of certifications, including CISA, CQA, ITIL, PMP, and more. She is also a certified independent director, which is a testament to her leadership abilities. Her diverse work experience and unique insights make her an invaluable asset to our discussions. Today, she will be sharing a bit more about her intro and her experiences in the context of our topic in governance and SME. We look forward to learning from her insights. Vijayalakshmi ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Babu. And my first thanks to Board Connect for giving this opportunity to do this topic. And it's a topic very close to my heart as a professional, rather than a career or anything like that. So thank you so much, Manoj and Dr. Rupali, for hosting this session. So I'd like to just go through, I thought, my own experience has brought me to this topic, and I just thought I'll go through that. Yeah, so after about 29 years of IT experience, and I work predominantly with MNCs from UK and France. And there, we all know what governance is about and what risk management is about. And I led the enterprise risk management of a company called Steria, which gave me a lot of experience on risk management and how board thinks, because I had to present the risk assessment to the board members, for taking important decisions. And being part of that operations board of this company for about, 10 years or so. And also having been a board member of ISACA Chennai chapter, which is more into information security risks. A lot of knowledge I have gained. But in 2014, I decided to shift to family business. In the last 9 years, I've been part of my family business. And this was a very, very drastic change for me as a professional. So, my family is into investment into startups, and they started in a very small way with an investment of about 1 crore. And today we are a 100 crore turnover company, and also in the sustainability area. So that's been a very big experience for me, very big learning and knowledge for me. And I'm based out of Karur, which is an industrial hub. It is in the center of Tamil Nadu, very close to Coimbatore, very close to Tirupur, which you would have heard are very, very big business hubs. And every time I interact with a business person here, a business owner here, there is a learning for me, how they think of it. And for me, it was like a shift from a very formal board culture to very informal governance of business. And initially, I used to think, why these people are not taking importance to these governance aspects. But when you start really looking at the pain points of the small and medium businesses, you realize, that you really have to go and give them a helping hand, rather than just questioning as to why you've not done this, why you've not done that. In fact, typically my husband will say, instead of questioning, you try to find out how to do this. See, this is the entrepreneur speak of small and medium businesses. And having interacted with a lot of people, and I've tried to help out a lot of my husband's friends. And really, my husband and my son have been my teachers through this journey of SME. And having interacted with a lot of my husband's friends and my son's investees, my son invests in a lot of companies. I tend to look at, whether his investment is right or wrong, and that is where, a lot of these, lot of aspects I have learned. And I started thinking, that SME governance is the need of our, irrespective of what Companies Act is all about or anything. SME governance is the need of the hour, because we need to really stop SMEs from failing. We may not end up with everything, but at least a few of the good ones, we should stop them from failing. And what do they really need? They need very simple mechanisms for compliance monitoring. They need very simple mechanisms for real-time governance. We have to influence their working culture, because their working culture could be very much family business type of working culture. So we need to really influence their working culture, and what kind of risks they can admit for growth. So this is how, I evolved into this topic on governance. And just an example I would like to state here is, when I was a board member and when I was a head of risk management in the with the MNCs, we did a project, we did a RFP for UID project. You all know, maybe about 15 years back, the UID project was floated by Nandan Nilankeni. And when they did the proposal, and when the proposal came to me from my company for my risk assessment, I had told the company not to go ahead with this project, not to bid for this project. So that was my kind of, feel for risk management. I did not want the company to fail on that project. So from there, when I came into the small business culture, our very first business, our very first order was a bad debt. Our very first expansion was much worse than a roller coaster ride, to the extent that we wanted to sell our business. Okay. So that's been the, the ends of experience that I had from moving to a board, to a small business. And that's where this whole topic originated, for me. And I do hope you will all have some thoughts to share, so that we can fine tune this practice much more. Okay. So I think numbers, we all partnership or friends partnership. But having said that, SMEs give the maximum employment. So they're giving 40% of total employment and 40% of manufacturing output. And there is no way that we can ignore the SME space at all. And there is a 2 trillion economy, and we find that SMEs have adopted to online sales much, much faster. Today, any SME that is starting up, they are on to online presence, they are on to social media presence, etc. So we need to have cognizance of all that, when we are as an independent director, right? 90% of them are micro industries. And we also, in 2019, we have the NSE Emerge and BSE SME, which have all, allowed the listing of companies. And I'll just come to listing. We have a small discussion point down the slides, whether a SME should go for listing or not. And I'd like to have your views also on that. And of course, SEBI has given us the small company definition. What are the challenges in terms of governance that SME faces? Steady cash flow. So that's a financial risk is always there for SMEs, irrespective of how big or small they are. Access to financing. So when they go to banks, they're asked for assets. Some may have assets, some may not have assets. So especially the technology startups have a lot of problems in access to financing. Credit assessment. How should we really do the credit assessment of these SMEs? Is it like the big companies, or should we look at other attributes of credit assessment for them? Because they will not have a big machinery, etc. So how do we really change this? There's such a high closure rate of SMEs. There are 10,000 plus SMEs which have closed in the year 22-23. Even the COVID period had about 6,000 to 7,000 SMEs, MSMEs closing. But 22-23 has really increased. So what is it that is making the SMEs fail? And where do we step in? Instability of their business, organization structure stability. We find that in the IT space, or a lot of them are losing their teams, to costs, etc. Knowledge of compliance. So they are so busy with their business, with their research, with their product improvements, that their lack of there's the huge compliance knowledge lacuna with them. So that's again a space where they need help, and some very cost-effective help is what they need. And ESG is the biggest topic that is coming to all the companies. And it is very, very important that SMEs are trained and they have a big challenge there also. They cannot, meet all the ESG goals that are outlined. So these are the challenges of SMEs. Now, when we look at, let's look at just the other point where investors are investing into SMEs. And so what is it that investors are going to look at, right? So when the SMEs have a product or an idea, investors are looking at whether it is feasible and whether there is a substantial amount of research that is happening within the company. Otherwise, investors are not very confident whether these guys can take their products forward. And if it is a services business or any other, run-the-mill business, what is the market share of these SMEs? So that is what investors are looking for. They're looking for minimal acceptable governance, basic governance practices, if they are there in place. For example, GST filing. The most important thing is the tax compliances that the SMEs have. And accountability of partners. Are these partners really accountable to the business? Are they accountable to the ups and downs of the business is what the investors are watching. I have a family of investors. My husband and son are investing. They're all on the boards of other smaller of SMEs. So, and this is repeatedly what we are seeing. What we see them evaluate. Higher operational performance with the lower risks, longer run of high returns. So what is it that the investors can get back? Is it something like a 2x or a 2.5x that we should expect as returns in a period of, say, 4 to 5 years? Or is it something more? And is the company capable of delivering this 2x returns? These are things that investors are looking. Actually, investors are not looking for very high returns, but it is at least up to 2x is the returns that they would like to have. Protection, most of you are investors, so you would also know what your expectations are in this space. Protection of rights and interests of investors is what they would like. Transparency of operations. We've seen a lot of SMEs who are very close about their operations. So transparency of operations is what the investors expect. And of course, compliance with the ESG. And more than all this, the investors are looking for the attitude and the integrity of the business owners. So this is extremely important. It's not measurable on anything like that. It is a judgment that the investors make on the attitude and integrity of the investors. So when although there is an experience, there are some frameworks which are available from IFC of World Bank. So where they look at various stages of SMEs and various maturity levels of SMEs. So that is where I thought, we should look at this. So basically, if it is a startup, I'll just cover the startup first and then go to the actively growing SMEs, the developing SMEs, etc. So the enterprise, just a moment, I will. So if it is a startup, what all the attributes that we look for as independent directors? What is their enterprise focus? So their enterprise focus is on product development and market validation. When it comes to governance and governance culture and commitment, they are all small informal teams, on-the-go systems they have. So they just go, they pick up Tally, they start using it, they pick up a HR system, they start using it, and there's not much thought about, what really they will need finally. And there's multitasking. There is no segregation of responsibilities or anything like that. Everybody does everything. Decision making is autocratic, and it is by the founder. Do what I say. I mean, this is what I have decided, and you do it. So this is autocratic by the founder. Founders are fully involved, so there are very limited checks and balances. The founders have everything in their head, so they don't need a check, is what they believe, but it may not be true. There could be a lot of slips in between, and everyone knows everything. So there is no need to have a formal communication or a formal disclosure or anything like that. And the ownership is predominantly a single owner or a family group, or it's a known circle group. This is how the startups are poised. Okay, when they're going into active growth, that is, they have validated their service or their product, and they are going into an active growth. They're actively growing. Most SMEs are in this place. Not even the MSMEs probably are in that place, but the quantum is less perhaps. At that stage, what they are doing is they look at only sales and growth. Sometimes they are very aggressive. They take all sorts of risks when they want to increase their client base. They give all sorts of discounts, and they go for all sorts of marketing strategies, very costly marketing strategies, which they may not get a return. So you'll find the ROI is very low in those marketing expenses. So all these things is what happens when they are growing from, establishing their product into the growth phase. In terms of governance culture and commitment, the organization structure is just evolving. Systems and processes, they start putting in place, and they start following the systems. And rules are being laid out for collaborative working. Otherwise, they wouldn't have a collaborative working also. So decision making also, they start delegating responsibilities to others. They're consultative, and the leadership team evolves at this stage. And it's a consultative leadership team. They start identifying key management personnel and advisors. In terms of risk, the delegation of authority starts happening. Internal control starts happening. They have approval responsibilities for purchase and sales, etc. Disclosure and transparency, they start with internal and external communication, because the banks are also starting to look at them in a more serious fashion. They're asking them more questions. So internal and external communications are starting to evolve, and they start putting down their communication frequency and the structure of their communication. But at the same time, there is silos that develops, because when communication comes in a team, the silo starts developing. And when they are delegated with their authorities, and they are just more modularized, the silo starts developing. So that's another thing that we should look for. And then ownership, either it's an increased number of family members who get into the business, or shareholders who start getting into the business, but in terms of their own circle of friends, etc. And then they go into a development phase where they start optimizing their structures and processes. Policies and procedures start coming in place. Especially the first thing will come in place is HR policy. And after that, other policies start. Purchase policy, HR policy are the first few things that start coming. Compliance rigor is there, and the responsibilities are mandated to the team. Decision making, again, professional teams are evolving for decision making. They have decentralized decisions, especially when they have branches, they have and multiple businesses, then they decentralize the decision making. Accountability starts developing. A lot more automation is there. Formal systems are in place. Risk management starts taking shape when they are developing. There's a lot more information sharing and data sharing, because by then their systems are getting stabilized. They're able to get a lot of data. They're consolidated. I mean, the teams are bigger. They have more managers. KMPs are established. Key management personnel are established, and they start getting more information. And there is a structured external communication also, because they're starting to answer their investors and bankers, etc. And this is a stage where they start allowing the investors to start influencing them, influencing their strategy and operations. They let the investors come in, be part of their board, and they are either mentors or advisors. in terms of the fairly mature SMEs, if you see, they have very strong, they're as good as what we would expect as an independent director from a listed company or a very big company. So all, they have very improved organization process, hierarchy is in place, decision making, institutional decision making comes in place. Other than their own decision making from within internal, it becomes more institutional. So they are, maturing in this management. They have formal board communications, etc. They have larger equity holders, and they look at next generations, and IPO and other things start setting in once they are mature. So this is how, we look at what a startup is and the various stages through which a startup goes or an SME evolves and what they do. Okay, so I just thought I'll pause for a bit here. I've spoken for almost 10-15 minutes, I think. And let's take some questions for discussion. First is the main thing for an SME is the credit, the credit they're able to give their customers. So I'll throw it open to the forum here, how SMEs can decide, to whom credit should be given or not. The very simple aspects, but from an SME point of view, how do they give credit to SMEs? So open to interaction.
Well, first point that I could think of is somebody who has been there in partnership or business with an SME for a longer time, and in subject to the term of loyalty. Those are the people that we better trust on in terms of giving credit. That is what is my perspective.
Loyal customers, yeah. Other points? I think somebody has raised their hand.
Yes. One.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Like now, with traditionally the way the loans or those things are secured based on the collaterals. Now, if you see, like SIDBI also has launched very recently something called GST Sahay, an app which is based on the loans, everything is distributed based on the cash flow visibility. Because now with a lot of digital payment happening, something like the inflow flow, there is a lot of visibility, those things. So how are we expecting this to, is it going to radically change the landscape in terms of availability of the capital, working capital for this segment, MSME segment? Maybe before that, one small this one, because the title, it is shown like it is the MSC, rather SME it is mentioned. So, but someplace it is also covered like 90% of the micro industries, because the number of 6.3 lakhs is also complete MSME.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the focus is for MSME entire segment rather than just SMA, I believe.
See, micro, I'm not focusing much on micro enterprises now in this session.
Okay, all right.
So
So coming back to this
SME, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, on the cash flow based one, what are the trends you are seeing, and what is that expectation that can probably contribute down the line? Because this cash flow based lending is something relatively new, and also on the BNPL, buy now pay later kind of schemes.
Okay, so okay, should I cover this towards the end, because we'll be covering some ratios also.
Certainly, if you please decide.
Yeah.
Yeah, ma'am, we have one more question on the chat window from Surendra Jagtap, sir. The various government schemes on encouragement of SMEs are not reaching to the SME owners.
Yes.
So requesting your views there, please, ma'am.
Yeah, I have actually addressed that in the future slide.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so one major challenge that an SME faces is, giving credit to the customers. So what sort of credits can be, to whom it can be given? So I think as somebody said, loyal customers, it's a tricky situation, how, whether you want to give credit or not, to whom you have to give credit, and it goes through a major assessment. Sometimes, it may be a new product, you're getting it into the market. and you don't mind giving the credit. But at the same time, at the back of your mind, you should be prepared for the risk, for the credit that you're giving. Okay. So SME is usually in a hurry to drive new sales and very often does not bother checking the antecedents of its prospective customers. How can it avoid onboarding dodgy customers who can defraud it? See, this is we've gone through a lot of bad experiences with dodgy customers. Every year we have at least 1 or 2 customers, and it is not a small amount. Sometimes it ranges up to 50-60 lakhs. And that's not a small amount for us. If I had that 50-60 lakhs, I would have as well implemented an SAP B2, right? So sometimes, bad debts go up to that extent, and SMEs cannot afford it, because when they have these dodgy customers and when they lose, when it's a bad debt, it is something to the growth that you are losing. For a big company like, 5,000 crore turnover and all, it is not a big, it is not a big money, but for us it is really. Okay, so basically looking at customers, and as independent directors, we look at how, what the customer profile of the SME is, and that's very important for us as independent directors or SME advisors and mentors to look at that. It's very important. Then SMEs also work with a lot of suppliers. So, how do you, how do you identify and select suppliers? Sometimes you don't have a choice. You have to go with certain suppliers. And when you are into mission critical, I wouldn't even say mission critical, I would say even in the run of the business, and when you're having a bigger demand, how does your supply chain work? Sometimes the supply chain just stops. Sometimes due to regulatory reasons or something like that, the supply chain stops. A couple of years back, we had a massive problem with our supply chain when India, paused all the imports from China. We neither could get machinery, neither we could get raw material or any of these. And just imagine the number of apparel people that are there, number of textile people that are there, all in the SME sector here. How many of them would have got affected because of this, sudden government regulation that they stopped the import in China? But later, it takes a lot. It takes, all these associations to go and represent the ministry and things like that. And sometimes you really think, can't the government think of the impact before it takes a decision, right? So very often this happens in the small scale, especially because we are in textile. I started a textile industry, apparel industry. After a long stint in IT, I went and started a apparel industry, which is called Kriti Apparels. We have that brand called Ecoline Clothing. So it takes it takes so much time for us to also recover. And for us, recovery time, even if it is 1 year, it costs a lot, because by then your money has gone. 2-3 crores have gone in that, wait time. And one important question, which I thought I will take your views now and you can discuss is, should SMEs go for listing?
Well, it should actually be based on their requirement itself. Like, what is the benefit that the SME get if they go for listing? If it is beneficial for the SME itself and would develop the business, then yeah, go for listing. But all those pros and cons should be discussed in the board or the managing partners, and then go for listing. So eventually, there's no straightforward answer that somebody can give with a yes or clear yes or no. It would all completely be based on the scenarios or the circumstances that the SME is up to at that point of time.
I don't expect unless the SME reaches 100 crore turnover kind of thing, listing I think is a far-fetched one. Some sizable risk and maturity of processes, those things have to certainly happen before somebody can consider.
True. And what about your views on whether SME should go for venture capital, angel funding? When do you think they should really go for it?
to me, it all depends on the quality of the investor, because the whole governance part, if it is going to be hijacked, then it's a very risky thing. So the ones who are investing, the ones who are funding it, I mean, the judgment has to happen based on that, I feel.
Okay. Okay, so there's always a debate, and we work with a lot of startups who are who have come for investments through angel funding and all that. And sometimes we wonder, why couldn't they continue for some more time and then come for funding? Why are they coming? So this is my view as an investor into startups. So we think, okay, can they not use their own assets and build this business a little more than coming for this? Because there are a lot of risk associated with some of the businesses. Sometimes the business model is not very well established. So these are things that we look at as investors when they come for funding. And I hear that this is something which I heard from NSE, one of the talks from NSE SME. So what they are saying is, when a SME comes for listing, what they do is they take a lot of effort actually to go to a lot of the HNIs, in the country, all over the country. They look for HNIs in the country, and they try to make the HNIs buy the shares of these SMEs. So there is an influence that is happening by NSE. I think BSE is also doing that, although I've heard this only from NSE. So there is a lot of influence that BSE and NSE are making with HNIs in India to support the SMEs by buying their shares and all that. It is just that, when an SME, is the SME mature enough to handle the finances, the money that they are getting from an IPO? Are they mature enough and serious enough in handling the funding they are getting from angel funds, investors, and all that? So this is, this is something which we have to assess, when they want to go for listing or when they want to go for venture funding, etc. But on the same side, we also see a lot of proprietary firms and partnership firms, family-run businesses who are doing very well without going for any external funding. Our company, several times we thought whether we should go to, angel funding. Several times we have thought whether we should go for IPO. But we said we don't need it. At this size and this scale, we are able to manage. We don't need it. And also it is the, the culture or the personality of the business owner. If the personality of the business owner is that he doesn't want to be questioned on a lot of his decisions, then obviously, getting an investor on board and then having to answer for all the decisions would become an overhead for him. He wouldn't like it at all. So these are all the aspects when SMEs go for listing. Any views from the SMEs here? Arvind, I think you are here. Would you like to share, whether you would like to go for listing or venture funds? Not sure if he's on mute or something. Okay, fine. We'll leave it to the end. Okay. So with this, I'll just go on to another view of the SME. Basically, the maturity level they have from a governance perspective. This is purely our independent director expectations of what a company is doing. So basically, when they are a startup, articles of association, bylaws, advisors, authority limits, basic bookkeeping, external auditor, compliances, MIS, shareholding, all these things are documented. It's all in place when they are a startup. So only at that point they become investor ready. They are moving to the next phase, which is investor readiness. So we need to see that all the startups, cross this phase with all this minimal expectations. And when they become investor ready, staffing positions, organization structure, strategic plans, business continuity plans, and like we say, our crisis management plans, use of external advisors, delegation of responsibilities, accounting policies and controls, internal audits also being outsourced. So there's always a third person view of what's happening in the company, disclosure, succession planning, AGM, all these things start happening when they are investor ready. Stakeholder governance initially is very loose in the startup phase because obviously the owner is involved in everything. But when it goes to investor readiness, there's a sort of a stakeholder governance process which is just sort of setting in. Again, from an independent director point of view, we look at interested parties and related parties transaction. Now, those things are still not established even when they are investor ready. Some investors push hard for these, for these aspects, and therefore it becomes important. And even when a company is investor ready, when they're going for funds and other things, they're very closed about their company information. They don't want to reveal much. The public access to the company information is very less when they are investor ready also. So when they go into the develop phase, that is when they're having external investors, bankers, bigger board, etc. So that is when they have division of responsibilities, board meetings, policies are in place, financing strategies are in place, KPIs. The CFO, they have a formal CFO, company secretary comes in place. All these things comes in place only when they are developed. But here again, the gray areas tend to be stakeholder governance, maybe because most of it is family run business or, close group, friends and things like that. Okay, but they start developing, they look at interested parties, and especially in ESG, if you see a lot of interested party importance is there. We need to be very, very conscious of interested parties. It can mean even a small pollution problem, So, we face some problems because we are into manufacturing. So we have to be very, very cautious about interested parties. Public accessibility to company information starts setting in. They start opening up. They start declaring their results. All these things start happening. And when they are in the advanced stage, of course, needless to say, it's like any other listed company, and all formal processes are in place. And by then, if their business grows, of course, they get into the, higher level, they grow beyond the SME into a big company. Okay. Ours is a family-owned business, and I see a lot of family-owned business. And as independent directors, as mentors, advisors, sort of external to that organization, as from that point of view, how do we look at family-owned business aspects? One is we have to very clearly understand the family values. Okay, so it is important to, each of them may be visible in some forum or the other. It's very important to understand their values. They should have some sort of a mission towards the business that they have started. Some mission and vision for the business they should have started. So it is important to talk to at least most of the family members. Some of them may be retired, and just for the sake of being on the board, they will be on the board. If not them, at least the active family members who are involved in running the business, we should understand that there is a sync in all these things with them. Family assembly, how do they really look at it? Do they have a board meeting, etc.? Although they are family, sometimes it tends to be, in my family, it tends to be casual on a Saturday morning. We are still not, public. We are only private. So we just, have a Saturday morning meeting, very casual meeting at home, which is actually my family assembly and family council. So that's what that's how it happens. Father, son, families also, it's just casual talks over the car. All the strategies are finalized, etc. So there's nothing formal about a board meeting or decision making, and everything is made on the fly, right? Then the role of board directors. So who plays what role? So here in my experience in our company, we have tried to Like that, we have sort of, we have taken different parts of the business as our responsibilities, and we're taking it. Family institutions, trust institution, family trust. Some of them may be belonging to a family trust. Then employment policies for family members, relatives, etc. Especially as a company is maturing, we need to be very clear. What do we do? Just don't bring any Tom, Dick, and Harry into the business and give him a role because he's related to you, is a cousin or a niece or an uncle or something like that, and he's lost his job or he needs a job, and bring him, put him in, disturb the whole system, and you don't know whether you will really get a lot of leverage out of this person or not. Transfers of shares, how transfers of shares are going to happen. Family inheritance. In this context, I would like to say, we, both me and my husband, we were looking at, creating a will, for the company. So we are very clear, because I also have a daughter, not just a son. So we were looking at, how to go about this. And we got umpteen views on this, including saying, don't write a will. Right? And this is from lawyers. So, but as an independent director, when I see the situation, I feel everything has to be documented. I feel my husband's share, or his, what is going to be inherited from his share to my daughter or to me or whatever it is, has to be very clear. And this, an external investor has to know, the future directors of the company has to know. And also the succession planning, what sort of people they bring in as their successors. And when we invest in companies, we're also saying, okay, it's a father-son owned business. Now, is the son gearing up to the father, or it's a brother-brother business? Now, is the younger brother, gearing up to the elder brother? Or in order to say that, are they gearing up for the business and for the growth of the company? So this is what we look at. I think it's a major topic if we really take it for discussion. So succession policies, are they in place? It's not just in place of the, in terms of the mind of the family members, it also has to be in document as a will or whatever it is. Otherwise, we see a lot of these, we find, we had a situation where we invested, and there was a lot of turmoil after the death of one of the business owners. So who is going to inherit what, right? Who is going to succeed into what role? Everything was a confusion, but they had such a good product in place. Okay. So nomination of family members to the board, all these things are very important, because we're all looking at how these SMEs are going to grow, right? Not just SMEs being what they are today or closing down or things like that. So on transactions with extended family and friends, in the initial stages, the transactions will be about taking loans. Then it will be about giving orders to your family and friends. So all this comes under the related party transactions ambit of our, Companies Act. So how none of these are documented, right? None of these are audited and reviewed also. Sometimes you give a job to your relative, and you may pay double also, right? More than what is really to be paid for. And sometimes you may take a loan, but you may not return the loan. So all these things have to be, it can happen, and it is bound to happen, especially in micro industries. This is bound to happen. But how do you sort of, streamline all these things? How do you formalize all these things and bring it in? So this is a very big topic. And when we are getting into any advisor mentor role in family owned businesses, I think we need to take this into cognizance. So the last two slides, focus areas for SME growth. I think this is where I'll come to all the government policies and things like that. Technology. I feel technology is the biggest enabler for SMEs, and even for MSMEs, micro businesses also. The faster they take to technology, they get MIS, they get data-enabled decisions. They should automate their processes as much as possible. But there is a challenge. The technology is costly, right? So how do we provide, low-cost technology platforms from them? There's a big opportunity in terms of providing SaaS-based services to MSMEs. Most of them are adopting now to SaaS-based services. Earlier, I used to see the business owners saying, I want a server. I don't want anyone to see my data. But now the youngsters, the next generation business owners, the sons, etc., who have come into the businesses, they are now looking at technology. They want it also easy. They want very quick decision making, easy decision making. So they're all adopting to technology, but still the technology side of things is still, I feel it's still very weak. And there's a lot of system integration, because they will put Tally, they will put another CRM, they will put an SCM, they will put a logistics management package. And for those of us who are involved with ERP, for those of us who know SAP and things like that, system integration becomes a big challenge. So how do they do system integration? So they get information. I know one textile business which has got a lot of systems, but the business owner doesn't get the information. He says, these guys are telling me I have to get this from here, this from here. They're not able to sync up everything and give it to me. So technology is an opportunity as well as it is a challenge for SMEs. Easy access to finance. I think you raised this question on awareness of government policies and network with financial institutions. Actually, CII is doing a lot of work in terms of creating this awareness, creating this network with financial institutions. To my knowledge, CII is doing it. FICCI is doing a lot of these things. But of course, FICCI is more into the non-manufacturing side, I think. Traditionally, they've been more into non-manufacturing, but CII is doing a lot of work in creating this awareness. But is it adequate? If you ask me, it is not adequate, because not all of them are members of CII. The micro companies cannot afford to take memberships like this. So how do we take it on to them? For the rural, on one side, there's a lot of awareness created to rural startups by the banks, by the NBFCs, etc. But the government policies, the DICs, the District Industries Commissioner, they also take, in Karur district, he's doing a lot of work in terms of creating this awareness. But still, if you ask me if this is 100%, no, it is not 100%. We should find better ways of communicating through social media or something like that about these government policies. That is my view on this. Compliance, awareness, and understanding. A lot of people don't even know what HSN code their product belongs to, what GST, therefore, what is that percentage of GST that is applicable to them. So fundamental lacuna is there in terms of some basic thing like GST, leave alone pollution control, leave alone so many other things that they have to comply with. And there are a lot of other things like, if you are an MSME, you can go for BIS standard certifications and things like that. And certifications, I think I missed out that point here. Certifications is a very important thing for MSEs. Again, it is costly, but at least what I try to do is with my friends' companies, what I try to do is I tell them you become certification enabled. It's okay. Per se certification is very costly, but try, when I'm mentoring them, I tell them at least you become certification enabled, whether it is 9,001 or 27,000 or whatever it is, this is how I think we should groom them and bring them forward. Risk assessment, I think in terms of risk assessment, we all look for agility of the business, informed risk decisions, focus on human capital. Human capital is a big risk. In our company, that is not the case because we have a lot of loyalty factors and our attrition levels are very, very low. But there are lots of MSMEs who are struggling with human capital. And that's very important, especially people who have a sales force and things like that. Network of peers. So a lot of forums, like for example, the Builders Forum and all these things are there for networking. So that is something that we need to see whether they are, when we as independent directors look at it, we have to see whether they are adequately networked with their peers. And there's something called the emergency nest egg or a emergency credit line, like what they gave during the period of COVID period, government gave us emergency credit line. So something like that should be available. Something like that, the SMEs also should be, providing for. Okay. And in terms of financial ratios, I think I don't have a bullet point here. Typical financial ratios that are looked for in SMEs is debt equity ratio. Banks are looking at this very much. Debt to assets, that is another ratio that they look for. Then receivables turnover, inventory turnover. So when banks are auditing us in the SMEs, they are looking at the inventory turnover, receivable turnover, cash flow. Every month we are being questioned on cash flow, right? Whether there is adequate cash flow in the company for running the operations of the business, and then the profit. Of course, profit is really required when you want to go for an additional capital, working capital, or an additional machinery funding or something like that. Profit is really important. So with this, I think I just thought I'll bring the context back to ID. I spent some time on SMEs. So I bring the context back to ID. So where do we really feel, where you think independent directors can play a big role is risk and crisis management. In my own experience with our companies, I mean, we have about 4 companies, and we have a lot of our friends' companies, our investee companies, etc. I find that if you take risk and crisis management as a separate topic, there is no appetite to listen to it. But if you if you sit on their operations board or something like that, and you intertwine your risk management and crisis management concepts into the business reviews, they are more to hearing. Because for them, for those business owners, the business review is more critical because they want more sales, more profit, and everything. So there, we have to be very tactful and artful in terms of clubbing this. Otherwise, we are used to maintaining all our big risk registers and things like that, which really they don't have the appetite to listen. So this is how, especially when they're going from startup to developing to, that phase. Data-enabled business decision. The youngsters now, the next generations that are coming in, they are getting more into data-enabled business decision. And needless to say, they are all very strong in marketing. The next generation business owners are getting to be very strong in marketing. But of course, there are certain areas where as a strategy, if we have the expertise, we can help them. Financial management, another big area to help in terms of financial management, especially the risks around it. And other than that, as IDs or advisors and mentors, we can help them with the Connects network, technology adoption, Companies Act. I put Companies Act adoption last because instead of taking a very heavy topic to them, we can just slowly get them into adoption. So with this, I just close, and I thank you for. I think there's a.
Thank you, ma'am. And on the chat, we don't have any questions, but Surendraji and then Umashankarji shared their point of views. Surendra sir shared that the listings of or VC angel funding of SMEs is individual firms' decision, and the option shall be kept open. And Umashankar sir mentions that also, I believe the incorporation of the entity matters when it comes to investors coming in. If it is private limited, then it is okay. But with most MSMEs being proprietary OPCs or in partnerships, I would expect the angel investors may not be that keen. So those are the point of views.
That is very true, Umashankarji. It is very true that investors are not at all keen on companies which are proprietary or partnership firms. So we are getting into becoming a private limited company now because we want investors. So it is very true. It is no, I mean, there is no doubt about it at all. They have to become private limited. Only then they will have the minimum compliance requirements in place. And I think that is very, very important. They have to become private limited. And there is definition of small company and even student startups are becoming private limited for, say, I think myself and one of my friends is here, Krishnamurthy Rao. We are supporting, we are mentoring and, student startups from colleges. We are both from IIT, and so we are mentoring student startups, and we find that most of them are becoming private limited. Many technology from overseas in cryptocurrencies. I'm aware of this, but I have not gone into too much of discussions on cryptocurrency-based investment, actually. But I'm not sure. I for one, feel that unless something is legalized, it is better not to get into it. So I would
I
say,
agree with you. Madam, I agree with you. But I have seen many new startup based on technology based. They have a finance engineering crypto.
correct. I'm hearing of this because one of my relatives is dealing with this.
Sometimes I discourage them also when I come to know and they are asking me advice on other aspect also. But still they are taking aggressively because they are very comfortable with crypto.
Cryptocurrency, yeah.
Yes.
To be very honest, if my son is going to say that he is going to get some investment from cryptocurrency, I would say no. I would straight away say no.
I am also doing the same thing. Still the younger generation not listening. This is the
Yeah.
thing.
Well, he may take a decision and take a cryptocurrency investment, but I would not agree, and I will never sign up for that also.
Yes, it was the same thing. Thank you.
Okay.
I
Any
had a
other
question.
views from? I think Chandrasekhar is having a question.
Yeah, I had a question.
Yeah.
Well, it was a very insightful session, as Ashok sir said in the chat, on your personal experience. Great session, and thank you. It enlightened us a lot. So
Yeah.
my specific questions or the information that clarification that I was looking for was, when you talked about the challenges and the opportunities of technology, what aspects of technology and data analytics rather have you adopted, or let's say any SME can adopt to improve corporate governance practices?
Okay. What I basically do is what I'm practicing in my company. I've also got a myriad of the so-called ERPs. We started with Tally, we started with ZipBooks, and we have something for maintenance and all that. So what I've done is I've brought in the culture where the data is analyzed and thrown up in the weekly meetings. So analytics, I'm using Zoho Analytics. We use a lot of Zoho. So wherever I'm not able to get a standard off-the-shelf product from the market, I use Zoho, and I use Zoho Analytics. So we bring the data into Zoho Analytics, basically simple trend charts. And these are things that we just throw in front of the directors. When I say directors, it's my husband and son, but we just throw it in front of them, or, I make the teams come up and say this. So like, for example, rate variances, purchase rate variances. Suddenly, you'll find the purchase manager is buying at a higher rate. So those kind of anomalies, the data team, I have a small data team which will pull out that data and say, why is this? Sometimes I myself get into that data. I just go drill around and see where there are bigger variances, and then I highlight it to the directors. Even the teams are not aware. If you really see, sometimes even their managers are not aware of some data. So this is where we should what we call as insights, and this insight keeps varying. We've also been hearing of this term called prompt engineers these days. So I keep telling my team, why can't you all be prompt engineers? You just go and prompt whenever. I don't know what a prompt engineer means, but I just tell them, no, why don't you go and prompt whenever there is a anomaly in the data, you're seeing something go wrong. Suddenly I'll see from my maintenance system, a particular asset has not had preventive maintenance in the last 3-4 months. Then I question as to, is it required or not? Then I make the director's answer to me as to that it is not really required. Then I'm happy. Otherwise, I question them.
Okay. Nice.
But definitely very low code applications is something which is really required for the SMEs, because I'm able to see not everything is there in products, right? Whatever product you, and for us also, 100 crore turnover, SAP is a tall order for us, because that money my son and husband will say, I'll put somewhere else. So SAP itself is SAP B1, it's B2, right? Itself is a tall order for us. So we have to live with, and I find a lot, and we are so much in the textile space. So I find a lot of people having small ERPs. And they all struggle with SAP B2. That is another opportunity, I think, where how do you make SAP easy for them? And they're all very local, tier 3. Most of the people who come to us are first graduates. They're not very strong in communication. They cannot understand very tough user interfaces and things like that. So that's the technology challenge, and I feel there is an opportunity, but unfortunately, I don't find any technology player trying to address this opportunity.
Okay. Possibly in the near future, somebody might evolve.
Somebody might.
Yeah. And the second question that I had, madam, is like when you talked about the purchase policies,
Yeah.
What best practices have you adopted to ensure that your supply chain and vendor relationships align with your company's corporate governance standards? Let's say, especially with the focus on ethical sourcing and sustainability.
Okay. I'm probably the best example for that because we buy rubbish, we buy waste, right? We buy the used PET bottles, whatever you can look up our site, ecolineclothing.com. We have a lot of our videos. We convert PET bottles into clothing, right? So we buy from kabadiwalas, right? And so the way we have grown about, and initially when we started, they wanted cash. Okay. So for the first 2-3 years, we had to write down each of our cash transaction. Luckily, GST was not there at that point of time. So I didn't have that much of a struggle. So we had to write each of our cash. Then at that time, we never had to bother so much about our vendors' payment of taxes. But today, if I'm buying from somebody, I have to ensure my vendor has either paid the GST or if he is not applicable, we have to declare that he is not applicable for GST, etc. So long process today. So somewhere back in 2014 or something, we said, if it is not bank payment, we are not buying. Okay. So we took a decision. We took a hit. At that point of time, our stocks were low. There were other competitors who had a lot of cash. So a lot of people sit on hard cash, right? The notes, rupee notes. There are lots of people in this industry who sit on rupee note. So they were able to do it and we were not able to do it. So we struggled a lot at that point of time. And then we brought in this. Now we go and talk to the rack pickers. We went and spoke to all our kabadiwalas, encourage them to make all their transactions banking. Thankfully, demonetization, GST helped us in a very big way. Okay, for us to get into compliance. Otherwise, it would have been a rat race for us, really. We would have been, for us, we are a company, it's a first generation company. So we have to take bank loans, right? We are not sitting on real estate or cash money, right? Boxes of trunks of cash. So we are dependent on bank loans and we are dependent on investors. So everything has to come into my books, right? I cannot hide anything. So this is the way we did. And today we have a vendor meet. We bring all our vendors on our annual day. And when they see us, when they communicate with us, they realize how formal we are in terms of our communications. And now everybody, and we are going and coaching them for GST filing and everything. Our accounts guy will go sit with them, teach them everything. The one thing that I've still not been able to complete is I wanted a traceability back to my rag picker. So on mobile apps through a blockchain system, this is something which I've still not been able to complete in terms of implementation. But definitely from the vendor's point of view, I don't think many industries will have this problem, but our industries do have this problem. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you did. And in fact, very interesting when you talked about the kabadiwalas, because recently when I wrote a short booklet on evolution of independent directors post-COVID-19, I did talk about these kabadiwalas and the small shops that are there and how they evolved the circumstances, the challenges that they face, and how they evolved to accustom to the new environment that was there, that had come up post COVID-19. So really interesting. Thank you, ma'am. And if you get a chance, please read through that. It's just a 65-page booklet. I will send it.
Sure.
Thank you. That's it from me. I don't have anything.
Any other questions, views also is open? I think I'll stop share so I can.
Madam, I have a question.
Yeah.
Madam, actually, and then SaaS model பத்தி சொன்னீங்க நிறைய வந்து technology prices has come down. That is true, but என்னன்னா most of the people companies who are newly coming into the system are struggling a lot to implement any system because என்னன்னா அட்லீஸ்ட் நம்ம ஒரு டேலி யூஸ் பண்ணோம்னா கூட அந்த கம்பெனில வந்து ஒரு ப்ராப்பர்ல ஒரு 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 பர்ச்சேஸ் ஃபைல், ஒரு சேல்ஸ் ஃபைல், ஒரு ஒவ்வொன்றுக்கும் அந்த லெட்ஜர்ஸ் இதெல்லாம் வந்து ஒரு ஃபைலிங் மெத்தடாவது அட்லீஸ்ட் வந்து கொஞ்சமாவது இருந்துச்சுன்னா தான் தே கேன் கோ ஃபார் டேலி. அதே மாதிரி வந்து நீங்கள் ஒரு டாஸ்க் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் ஆப்பாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, ஒரு ப்ராஜெக்ட் மேனேஜ்மெண்ட் அப்ளிகேஷனாக இருந்தாலும் சரி, ஒரு பேசிக்காக அவங்க ஆஃபீஸ்க்குள்ள ஒரு சின்ன சிஸ்டம்ஸாவது இருந்து அல்லாட்டி அங்கே ஒர்க் பண்ணுறவங்களுக்கு அந்த சிஸ்டம்ஸ் இப்படியெல்லாம் இருக்கு, இப்படியெல்லாம் ஃபாலோ பண்ணணும் கொஞ்சமாவது தெரிஞ்சதுனா தான் தே வில் பி ஏபிள் டு யூஸ் எனி கைண்ட் ஆஃப் அப்ளிகேஷன் மேடம். அதில் தான் வந்து எல்லாரும் ஸ்ட்ரகிள் ஆகிற மாதிரி தெரியுது. ஸோ அப்ளிகேஷன் வந்து இந்த எம்டி ஆர் த சிஇஓ பார்க்கும்போது ரொம்ப அருமையாக இருக்குது, இது நம்ம யூஸ் பண்ண நல்லா இருக்குங்கிற தோணுது. பட் அதை வந்து எம்ப்ளாயி கிட்ட இருந்து அதை வந்து எல்லாருமே அந்த ஆப்பை யூஸ் பண்ணணும் அப்படிங்கும்போது வி ஸ்ட்ரகிள் அ லாட். ஸோ அந்த இடத்துல வந்து நீங்கள் எப்படி உங்களோட ஆஃபீஸஸில் அந்த மாதிரியான சிஸ்டம்ஸ் இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ணுறீங்க? இஃப் யூ கேன் த்ரோ சம் லைட், இட் வில் பி வெரி யூஸ்ஃபுல் ஃபார் அஸ்.
Okay, I will just translate it for the others because I think the others do not speak Tamil, so I will just translate. So basically he's saying that the MD decides, one particular app is very nice, one particular IT system is very nice and it has to be implemented in the company. Arvind, correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so but when it goes to the employee level, for them to adopt that system, whether even take as simple a system as Tally, for them to implement that system, what record they should maintain, right? How they should have their daily practices so that they are able to enter into Tally or any other smaller ERP. So he's asking, what is my experience in terms of, getting this? Because MSMEs do have this, this is the biggest challenge. So Arvind, I also went through all these difficulties. I put some application in place. Nobody will use it. They will still go to my son and my husband with a paper, or they will put it in one Excel sheet. Even today it is happening. Some of my managers, they will take the Excel sheet to my son for a decision while I'm sitting and implementing their ERP systems. Right? I feel very bad and I get very angry then, but I have to patiently work with them. So I tell them, then I have to patiently tell my son, because my son says, that is faster for me in terms of decision. I don't have to wait for your analytics report or your Zoho report is what they would say. So I try to bring the procedure in place. So I say that when you're doing this, so it is like, wherever an action is happening, there you have to give them the data capture. If you're giving a back-end data entry operation, it doesn't work very well because the report, nobody sees the report. Like I have one unit, my garment unit, where we are putting all the data in a stage ERP. Okay. People are putting it inside, but it's so difficult. So directors are just not interested in seeing those reports. Okay. But they have crises. That is where I am stepping in and trying to see the data, finding out all the anomalies. I am telling this is the profit you made in these 3 orders, but this is a loss you have made in these 3 orders, right? So if I try and take those points, that is how it happens. You definitely need someone to help you with that IT implementation, and the process has to be in sync with the IT system.
You mean the process has to be made first and They have to practice in a manual method before getting into the software,
Exactly.
madam.
Exactly. So I make them first practice on Excel sheets before they come into the system. And what I have done, Arvind, is I do not follow the ERP screens directly. That is why I have gone to Zoho development. Because in production and all, if you see, each of them have their own way of capturing information, and they need that information. It's very critical for them. Now, if I tell them my SAP screen, you have to put it in 2-3 different places, they get very irritated. So that is why I used a low code application. I developed forms which can capture their data very easily. Every point. So a person comes in, he will put his data there. In production, person comes in, he's doing some charging, he'll put the data. He's going and noting a temperature, he'll put the data there. So, but if I go via the ERP, that is not happening. So I'm first setting the process, then I sit and match with the ERP whether the ERP will work or not.
Understood, madam. Yes.
And for my ID friends here, if you know, systems, IT people like me, I think they can add a lot of value in this space for SMEs. We're all used to working with big corporates, we never realize these small things. And this is a very big space for us to help in there. And SMEs don't mind paying, as long as it's reasonable. And we can also do the, whatever the crowd way of doing work for them.
Madam, there is one company called Anmeda Systems. They are the ones who are providing ERP solutions and training SMEs in such aspects, like implementation of technology into the business. If you want, I can Anmeda Systems. They are based in Bangalore, but they are going everywhere: Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, everywhere, and exploring opportunities and supporting SMEs. If you want, I can share their contact, the MD's contact information with you.
Yeah.
Please share the contact in the chat.
Sure, I will share the MD's contact information with you, and or the product manager's contact information also.
Okay. Any other questions or views?
I think there is no question. Babu, Mr. Babu, you can take over.
Yeah, sure. Well, on behalf of Board Connect India, we thank you all for your active participation in today's discussion on governance in SMEs. It was a pleasure to hear the insightful thoughts and experiences shared by Vijayalakshmi ma'am. Her expertise and knowledge have undoubtedly enriched our understanding of the topic. As we conclude, let's carry forward the valuable insights gained today in our respective roles and responsibilities. Remember, effective governance is the cornerstone of a successful SME. Once again, thank you, Vijayalakshmi ma'am, for your invaluable contribution, and thank you all for your time and engagement. Looking forward to our next meeting. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
For this
Thank you all.
Thank you again. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you.
Best wishes to her on the private limited transition.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
anchored very well, Babuji. You were anchored very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Babu. Thank you, madam. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, madam.
Bye.
Thank you.